And welcome back to Your American Story. This is your host, Raja. And joining me right now is Mike Cham, co-founder and CTO of Blenderhouse. Mike is a proven technologist with expertise in enterprise architecture and systems engineering. Mike has held numerous high-level positions, including CTO for a venture-backed startup and vice president for software engineering for LexisNexis. His technical specialty and research area is around data modeling, management, and machine learning. Mike has a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science from Carnegie Mellon University. Mike will be pitching to our three investors next. Again, you have met our investors before, and if you want to hear their exact criteria, you can go to youramericanstory.com and listen to what each of the investors had to say. Again, our three investors are Mike Stubler from Draper Triangle Ventures, Jim Jordan from PLSG, and Ned Renzi from Birchmere Ventures. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the format. Mike will start with a 4-minute pitch to our three investors. The order of the investors asking questions will be Mike, Jim, and Ned. Each investor gets 3 minutes to use as he chooses, either to provide feedback or to ask questions, and the responses from Mike will be included in this 3-minute segment. After the investor segments, Mike will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. Daryl Grandy, our radio producer, will hold up a yellow flag 1 minute out and a red flag when time's up. Welcome, everyone. And Mike, at this point, I'll turn this over to you. You have 4 minutes to make your opening statement.
Thanks, Raja, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to pitch everybody. It's always good practice and hopefully turns into something real. What I'm here to talk about, in the last few years, there's been an explosion in the use of something called a ventricular assist device in the treatment of advanced patients with advanced heart failure. A ventricular assist device, or VAD, V-A-D, is a small pump, a mechanical pump that gets implanted in a patient's heart that can take over many of the heart's basic functions in terms of pumping blood throughout the body. In the last year alone, there were 6,000 of these devices implanted in patients, and that's compared to the 3,000 heart transplant patients for which this device can help bridge the time to. This device has been used primarily as a bridge to heart transplant, but is also being used as a destination therapy for those patients who are not eligible for heart transplants. By 2017, it's estimated there's going to be about $1 billion in sales for these devices, as well as a population of 250,000 people who could benefit by implantation of these devices. It's a huge opportunity for those device makers, as well as for the patients who benefit from it. However, with all that goodness, there's a bad side where it's very difficult for physicians and patients to actually make the decision on whether to implant a VAD for that patient. The clinical analysis involved is extremely complex, and implantation of these devices is, from a financial perspective, extremely risky. Under the best scenarios for these patients, a typical procedure can cost $100,000 to $200,000, including the cost of the device. If things go poorly, those costs can skyrocket well north of $500,000 per patient. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of good analytics out there to assist the physicians and patients in coming to that decision. The best ones out there are not much better than a coin flip at best. Blenderhouse, with our collaborators at Carnegie Mellon and Allegheny General, have developed what we call the Cardiac Health Risk Stratification System, which I call CRIS for short. CRIS is a web-based software application that can analyze 150 to 200 patient variables and produce a set of reports and charts that offer very accurate, timely, and insightful analytics into whether or not this patient is a good candidate for a VAD. Around this calculator core that we've created based on some cutting-edge research at CMU, we've developed a set of features, premium advanced features that would be highly useful to the VAD program administration, to insurers, and the VAD manufacturers themselves. What we believe as a good business model then for this is just trying to keep it very simple. we're going to try and give away for free access to the basic calculator to patients and providers to increase adoption, and charge the VAD programs, the insurance companies, and VAD manufacturers for access to the advanced features. We believe that we can charge an annual fee based on the number of VADs that each one of those organizations is involved with to be able to get access to those advanced features. We believe that within about 2 or 3 years under this model, we'll be able to achieve cash flow positive basis. Currently, the CRIS is a live website. We're able to demo it to people, and we're in talks with 4 different VAD programs around the country to be able to have them pilot CRIS for daily use within their platform. Just to close, we're looking to raise about $200,000 to support this rollout of CRIS, both the first part and the second part, so that we can achieve an exit about 2 years after we had achieved cash flow positive through primarily an acquisition. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from Mike Cham, co-founder and CTO of Blenderhouse, Pittsburgh investors in the Running with the Bull contest in conjunction with Pittsburgh Life Sciences Greenhouse on Your American Story. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to our judges, Mike Stubler from Draper Triangle.
Mike, you know, as med tech or healthcare investors, one of the things that is always a concern is the regulatory environment around a certain product, with the FDA path. You know, given this is a software product, what's the involvement with the FDA in terms of approval or use of this product?
Well, at this point, I mean, we would be classed as a clinical decision support device. We're not even a device. And currently, there's no requirement for the FDA to go through any sort of registration process at all. You know, that's always subject to change. But, you know, most clinical decision support software services are classified as the onus is still upon the physician to be able to make the ultimate decision, and the liability then lies with them.
So, you know, you explained the problem and the huge cost, you know, for these types of procedures. What do you think the price point for, you know, how would you see pricing this product? And
what we've seen in our discussions is we think we can charge about $500 to $1,000 per VAD per year that's done at these programs. So just as a background, you know, there's small, medium, large programs. The small ones are doing about 20 VADs or less a year. Medium programs are about 20 to 50, and then large programs are 50 and much, much higher, like Cleveland Clinic and some of these places.
And so I know you said this, I just wanted to clarify it. So ultimately, who is going to pay? Who would be the pay for the service?
Well, we see 3 primary payers. One are the VAD programs themselves, who are looking to gain access to the value-added features, the premium features that we have. Insurance companies who would not get it necessarily for free up front would be able to use it and pay a similar pricing model for access, so they can do their own validation of whether or not the procedure should be performed in this patient. VAD manufacturers we think, are going to find this very interesting, because we're effectively driving sales of their devices, and maybe a sort of I hate to use lead generation in this context, but that's effectively what we would be. We'd be able to give them real-time dashboard view into what's going on.
And how many VAD clinics are there in the U.S.?
There are about 170 in the U.S. at this point, about, I think, 250 around the world, and that number is just, you know, but the 2 main U.S. manufacturers are definitely, that's one of their main things, to drive the number of programs higher in the U.S. and around the world.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mike. At this point, I'll turn this over to Jim Jordan from PLSG.
You know, last week we talked about the importance of domain talent, and this is the first time I've met you. I've met your CEO, and I've worked with them. How fortunate he is to have someone as articulate as yourself, so I just commend you on that. So my questions are more on the business model, which may not be a fair question for a chief technology officer.
Bring it on. But he's in Croatia, but he's been talking to me.
So the question is, with the data that you get from this, so as you execute your product, you're going to gather data, and does that data potentially have value as a revenue stream to you later on?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where, from the VAD manufacturer perspective, the VAD device makers, I think, are going to be the ones that find that incredibly valuable information. Both, I think it's going to be the real-time aspect of it, but also sort of over time. The other main user is just going to be quite honestly, these VAD programs are somewhat competitive with each other. And so being able to produce a set of statistics that are far more accurate than anything that they're going to self-publish out there about actual success rates or other sort of factors that describe the program, and sell that to the marketing departments, or I hate to use traditional business terms around a nonprofit hospital system, but their marketing departments would find that extremely useful as well. So yeah, we see that once we have the data, we'll be able to unlock further revenue streams going forward.
So who do you anticipate would buy your company when you get to wherever you need to get to?
Quite honestly, the device manufacturers themselves may find it very compelling. I don't know what the competitive issues are there, but that's one thing. But my background on Wall Street and in the legal software leads me to the people I used to work for. What used to be Thomson Healthcare, which is now Trevant, something like that, and LexisNexis. Both have been continuing to expand into clinical decision support and analytics, and would be two natural acquirers. Besides that, IBM, General Electric, and those kind of guys are looking for solutions like this.
So a VAD is a bridge to a transplant, or if you're not going to get a transplant, it's sort of permanent. So does this work for lungs and kidneys? Is there an opportunity to expand this concept to other disease states?
That was one of my points I wanted to hit was, yeah, thanks for that one. Yeah, we believe this approach, where we've got the team that can do all the cutting edge research and build out these models, can be applicable to a variety of these high-cost, high-value interventions. The next one we're looking at is pulmonary hypertension, which is less device and more pharmaceutical-based, which I would love nothing more than to sell things to pharmaceutical companies.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you, Jim. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to Ned Renzi from Birchmere.
Thanks, Roger. So, Mike, I'm going to ask a very non-technical question to start, but Blenderhouse just doesn't strike me as like a typical med tech type name. So maybe you could give us a little background on how the company picked its name.
I think all I'm allowed to say is New Orleans. I'll leave it. Can I leave it at that?
So in venture, I have two basic rules. I don't invest in any companies that started in New Orleans, and I don't invest in scratch golfers.
We started here. We started here.
Just kidding.
And I'm about a 15.
Good. So you had mentioned that part of the funds you would raise would be for quote unquote rollout. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about your go-to-market strategy.
Sure. Well, in order to even push something for free, I mean, we definitely need some marketing, social media marketing and that kind of fun stuff that we can get on the cheap. But a lot of it's going to be around education at medical conferences, medical journal advertisements, medical journals, and the like. So our academic collaborators are already out there pushing the underlying algorithms that underlie the CRIS calculator model. We need to go along with them to be there and support and advocate and push the features out there. So for me, it's a lot of just supporting that activity. So it's a lot of travel to. I've learned over time, since I don't come from the medical industry, that these medical conferences seem to be held in expensive places, and so we need a little bit of money to be able to offset those costs.
And one of the things we look at as investors is, does the sales and marketing process scale? Can you replicate it in other markets? And so in answering Jim's question, you had mentioned some other adjacent markets you could move into with your system. How does the sales and marketing of those products and those solutions the same or different than the VAT market?
Well, I think, one theme that's going to underlie any places we go is we have a lot of, our team is heavily loaded with cardiovascular, pulmonary expertise. And so adjacent markets we're going to go in, adjacent diseases we'd be going into or interventions we'd be going to would be along that line. Whether it's VADs or heart transplants or any pharmaceutical-based treatments or anything like that. And so, from my perspective, it's an easy, you're already subscribing to our service for addressing VAD implants. You should take a look at us for pulmonary hypertension or CTEF or any of these other diseases for which we can provide better analytics for. And I think what we'll end up building to is this large, wide platform that can really be one-stop shopping for all their advanced risk needs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard the Q&A between our investors and Mike. And this is a great inside look as to how real investors work with real entrepreneurs in consideration of their investments. To find out if our investors will invest in Mike's company, you got to tune in on July 13th. Mike, at this point, I'm going to turn this over to you for a 1-minute close.
Thank you. So for me, what I get really excited about this is it's this device is so cool, and it's a giant opportunity. And we're there to sort of just sit on it and make it even better and more useful in the industry that uses it. You know, it's an opportunity to take this very expensive, difficult process and make it not only profitable but good for patients, so it feels good. And so from an investor perspective, I think we're obviously early. We're pre-revenue, and so I think it just presents an excellent opportunity to get in early and get a good multiple on their investment.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, investors. Ladies and gentlemen, our investors and entrepreneurs are making an impact on the growth and prosperity of our region by creating jobs and enhancing the quality of our lives. You too can make an impact. You can go to our website, it's Your American Story, and if you liked what Mike Chan had to say, go vote for him. Again, the website is youramericanstory.com. The audience winner gets $2,500 cash. At this point, we're going to take a commercial break. Again, Mike, investors, thank you. And this is your host, Raja, and I'll be right back.